Hello, everyone. Just wanted to let you know that I am in active storm chase mode once again after a pretty long lull. Now, when I'm in storm chase mode, there's a lot of factors that go into this aside from the meteorology. There's the location of the severe weather. If it's just a little bit too far away, or if it's in terrain I'm not really very fond of, or if I have personal obligations and I can't make it. But in this particular case, this storm chase mode that lasts from Sunday the 19th through Tuesday the 21st is a fairly good time for me to go chase some storms, and they are going to be happening in pretty favorable, flat, chaser friendly areas. So let's just get right into it and show you the map. So this is the Storm Prediction Center's official forecast for Sunday. You can see there's a slight risk out for Kansas and Nebraska. I kite chase from Springfield, so we're talking about practically anywhere from a 4 to a 6 hour drive here. I'll show you why I think it's going to lean a little bit more toward 5 to 6 here in just a minute. But let's just take a look at that right away. So we're looking at this is the 500 millibar flow. And as is typical, we have, when we're in storm chase mode, we generally have a trough of low pressure out on the west coast of the United States. That certainly is the case here. The winds are active. There are a couple of short waves embedded in this flow, but the wind field is not terribly fast. Now, I don't necessarily have to have screaming bulk shear, and I'll show you that in a minute. I kind of like when it's a little bit more balanced, when the bulk shear and the overall speed of the storm system is slow. The main reason I like that is because it's easier to chase. I'm not as worried about storms outrunning me or me getting into trouble because they're moving so fast that I can't possibly do anything. So I don't really mind wind speeds in this range if we can get a balance between that and the instability and throw a few boundaries in there, and we'd be good to go. So what is the possibility of that? Well, we can see Cape here is kind of pooling up along a frontal system. That intrigues me. And then we have what appears to be a dry line feature here as well. So one thing you might want to look at for this particular storm chase is this intersection point right here of the dry line and the front, or anything that forms along the front. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding my clear key here, and moves this way, because the upper level winds, especially if storms turn right a little bit, will favor this warm front as long as it's not moving along. Or maybe it's a stationary front. That's kind of my point. Maybe it's not moving northward all that quickly. So that would make for a pretty interesting chase right around the Kansas-Nebraska border area. Of course, this many days out, 2 days out, kind of hard to know the exact position of those features. But that's at least something to watch for on this particular day. This is the mid-level lapse rate, so we have a very, very steep mid-level lapse rate. So this is pretty unstable air aloft, especially. So that's pretty favorable. And then this is the bulk shear I was talking about. So you can see, really, everybody talks about 30-knot winds. That's really where the red is on here. So that's having to get into northern Nebraska or northern Kansas and southern Nebraska. By the way, if you haven't noticed, all these maps are valid at 4 o'clock on Sunday. I don't do 0Z, although I think it would get a little bit better by 7 o'clock, 3 hours later. But this is at 4 o'clock. It's the one I chose. As we get later in the storm chase season, I'll start selecting probably 0Z a lot more at 7 o'clock, because there's a lot more chase time involved when the days are longer. So anyway, that's Sunday's setup. So if I had to guess right now, I would say I would head for the Kansas-Nebraska border early enough to make a pivotal one way or another decision about what's going on that particular day. All right, so this now is Monday at 4 o'clock. The overall jet stream pattern has shifted. There's a strong short wave rotating around the trough down there in Baja. Winds across Kansas are increasing, but again, not real strong. Again, I don't mind that as long as there's a proper balance. It just means the storm speed is slower, so that's actually pretty good. If we go ahead here, we have again the most unstable air and some indication of a little dry line surge right here. So this looks to me as if this entire thing just shifts from the Kansas-Nebraska border southward into more of central Kansas by the time we get 24 hours later on Monday. The bulk shear is just starting to get to the point where it gets interesting in Kansas, that same area I just talked about right in here. So again, if you were to fast forward to 0Z, I'm sure that situation would get better. So one of the things that's pretty favorable is when the wind speeds are increasing just at the time of peak heating, or into that time when the winds at the surface can start to back and be a little bit more favorable for tornado development. So far we've got chase on Sunday to here, chase on Sunday to here. So then the big question is, what about the next day? Now this day is Tuesday. Overall improvement in upper level winds for sure. 500 millibars again at 4 o'clock on Tuesday. No problem with bulk shear here. We have no issues. Now it looks to me like certainly this would be an interesting area, and this might be a possibly interesting area. And this to me is always a balance between the dynamics of the situation, which is this one, and the thermodynamics of the situation, which is this one. Sometimes they both go. In terms of storm chasing and me wanting to drive all the way up there, that's not impossible. That's Minnesota, northern Iowa, Wisconsin. It's okay chase area, by the way. Certainly, I know Oklahoma a lot better. So that's one possibility down there. If we advance to the overall instability, it runs, the nose of it runs from that one unstable area that I circled initially. But notice down here, it's actually pretty favorable, pretty high capes. And also the bulk shear, the shear vectors cross the boundaries fairly favorably here. Maybe not so much in the center, but here and here. So I guess if I were adventurous, I would go from here on Sunday to here, and then way up to here on Tuesday. Or most likely what I'll do is go from here to here to here. Again, I'd have to be really convinced that this area on Tuesday is something that is worth the drive to go chase, and not even the drive to it. It's the drive back that I'd be not wanting to do that, and I probably have to stay overnight on that one. Anyway, that's my real quick review. Sunday through Tuesday, we're in storm chase active mode. There's even some possibilities later next week after Tuesday, but that starts to get into a little bit more mystery land, so we don't need to deal with that right now because there's plenty of opportunity on the board as it sits. I'll probably bring you another update on Sunday morning right before this adventure begins. Signing out.